Subscribe or they will haunt you.
What's the scariest thing that's ever woken you up during the middle of the night? Last night's rocket attack and siren. I live in Israel with my pregnant wife and 2-year-old. Edit. Wow, I wasn't expecting this comment to blow up. Normally whenever I mention anything about Israel it gets downvoted immediately. Thank you everyone for the kind wishes and concern. TBH, it's not that bad here in terms of casualties or rockets. Other parts of the country, not to mention Gaza, have it much worse. But it's still scary getting woken up in the middle of the night by a loud alarm and having less than a minute to get my wife, son and dog in our safe room. We then wait for the loud explosions before moving back to our bedrooms. I hope it ends soon. The older I get, the more I realize that most people are manipulated by their governments into this conflict. Hamas needs money. Best way to get it is to attack Israel. And in Israel the various government players are always looking for more votes power. I work in the same building as many Palestinians and Israelis, and there is absolutely no tension from either group toward the other and no bad wishes. It's sad that a few assholes can cause so much damage to so many good people. Sorry for the rant. Thanks again for all your kind words. Woke up from a dream about a man who climbs in windows and watches people sleep to see someone sitting on the chair next to the bed I was sleeping in. Then actually woke up. Edit. This happened at my grandparents' house when I was in high school or middle school, and since then I've had at least one other dream like this at their house. I was staying in a different room that is attached to the attic and someone came through the door in the middle of the night. I'm not sure if I placed emphasis on the creep factor of that room because of the attic and the rumors that the previous owner's mother-in-law lived and died in the attic, or if that house is just fucked up. Double edit. My grandmother had one of these dreams too, only it was death telling her to come. She apparently did not go. I woke up to a cockroach that had crawled into my ear. I shit you not. Excruciating pain. Tried to flush it out with water. No luck. I had to lie there for 6 hours before Mom took me to hospital while it moved around. Scratched my eardrum and fluttered its wings. That sound is terrifying when it comes from in your ear. My ear was bruised from how hard I was pushing in an attempt to stop it moving. They first tried to blast it out with a high-pressured little hose, which hurt like a bitch and didn't work. So then they poured oil into my ear to drown it. Then sucked the fucker with a little vacuum. I'm sorry you had to go through this, but mostly I'm sorry I had to realize this is a real possibility in life. Husband running into the bedroom, choking. Something about the way his footsteps were pounding and woke me up instantly. He swallowed one of those easy swallow Tylenols, ironically enough, and it caught in his throat. I asked if he was okay and he violently shook his head no. So I went from asleep to Heimlich in about 2 seconds. A really terrible way to be woken up, especially since he said the last time it happened he has a constricted esophagus from stomach acid scarring, so he's prone to choking while eating. His ex-wife had been unable to do it and he had passed out. You expect some big heroic adrenaline wave to come sweeping over you and empower you to magically save your spouse, but I was just terrified and swearing. I also thought I did it incorrectly because it wasn't a neat little tui like in the movies. He bent over, violently throwing up. Do I still do it? Do I stop? What do I do? But he was coughing and could speak. Told me to call 911. The 911 op reassured me that if he was coughing, he was getting air, and to encourage him to keep coughing. Then she led me off the line, which in my state of hysteria, I took to mean that an 01 was coming. The paramedics and firemen showed up and filled my kitchen while I stupidly stood there in half a nightie with a blankie wrapped around me, and they took him off in an ambulance. The capsule apparently melted on the way to the ER, but I'll never forget the horrible sound it made, rattling with wrongness in his throat as he would grab and pinch at his neck. After the tornado in Joplin, Missouri in 2011, we were left without power for several days. Our home was only slightly damaged, so we were able to stay there. My daughter had just turned 11 at the time and was sleeping on a pallet next to our bed because she didn't want to sleep in her room by herself with no electricity. She had been in the bathroom of her aunt's house during the tornado, and that bathroom was literally, and I mean literally how it's meant to be used, the only place in the house left standing. Anyway, this was 2 nights later. The 3 of us and our 3 dogs were all asleep in the room, and I woke up to my daughter screaming that the house was on fire. Sure enough, flames were coming from the master bathroom. Small flames, but flames. I got up and ran to the garage to get our fire extinguisher, but it was pitch black with no power. I had to go back in, get my phone and go back out to find it. By this time my wife and daughter had gathered up our 2 French bulldogs and gone outside, but we couldn't find the pit bull puppy my daughter had gotten from us for her birthday. We couldn't find the cat either. So I went back into the bathroom, but the flames were too much already for our fire extinguisher. So I decided it wasn't worth it to die of smoke inhalation, so I bailed. We called 911 about 6 times, but emergency personnel was so spread thin with the tornado that it took about 20 minutes for anyone to get there. We sat in the road and watched our house burn. Total loss. My daughter was in the heart of the Joplin tornado and 2 days later watched her house burn. TL. Woke up at 2 a.m. to flames from our master bathroom. Watched house burn. I was 10 years old and out camping with my Girl Scout troop out by Catalina Island, and we were sleeping in our sleeping bags outside. I fell asleep with my hand outside of the bag, and I woke up sometime later feeling something crawling around on the back of my hand. There was a full moon out and I looked over and saw a ginormous potato bug on my hand. I wanted to scream, but I didn't want to wake everyone up, so I flung my hand away from myself to get rid of the bug, and then spent the rest of the night with the zipper of my sleeping bag pulled shut and the opening at the top closed up. Worst night of my 10-year-old life. My family was staying at this haunted hotel in Savannah, Georgia. It was an old hospital during the Civil War or something like that, and my brother and I were sharing a bed. The first night, I woke up to him smashed up against the headboard. No noise and movement at all. When I asked him what he was doing, he said he was afraid to move because he wasn't entirely sure if he was dead or paralyzed. That he woke up to this enormous pressure and was pushed up against the headboard freaked me out, and I refused to share a bed with him again out of fear of another ghost attack. The next night, I was sleeping with my sister and she rolled over on me. I kept trying to push her off when I noticed she wasn't anywhere near my side of the bed. Almost peed my pants, and then watched TV until his son came up because ghosts. TL. Ghosts are real and scary. I'm 21 now, and until about a month ago I went 20 years of my life not knowing if ghosts were real. I would have absolutely loved to keep it that way too. But so much for that. A few weeks ago I was at an old lake house with a ton of friends. Me and one other guy claimed to single beds in one of the bedrooms. Apparently, this house belonged to one of my friend's grandparents who had both died in that house. At the foot of my bed up on the wall was this odd painting of a young woman. No idea who it was of. Anyways, I kept trying to sleep but kept hearing a weird breathing sound coming from the opposite side of the room. Opposite side of where the other guy was sleeping too. Eventually I ignored it and almost fell asleep right before I was out. I swear it's as if someone grabbed the end of my bed and just shook it back and forth violently for a full couple of seconds. I have never gotten such bad chills. I looked around the room in the dark but didn't see anything. But for the life of me I could not even peek at that painting on the wall. Even if I looked out of my peripheral vision, I swear I could see the young woman looking at me. I got the weirdest, creepiest, most evil vibe coming off that thing. Somebody did not want me sleeping in that bed. Also, I stayed awake in the living room until the sun came up. TL. Dr. MRSFLABEO is fucking right. Ghosts are real and scary as fuck. I was put on Chalexa when I was a kid. The weirdest dream I had of that was seeing all these different kids experiencing the worst possible death. There was one kid who a statue holding a hatchet fell on him and the hatchet nailed his skull. Then another kid rolled out of bed and through a trap door, and as the door closed, it poured this liquid which was lighter fluid and the casket erupted in flames and the kid is screaming. Then another kid was flying on this weird glider and fell out. As he is falling, a jet flies by and he get caught in the engine and the engine spews out the blood. I had different versions of this kind of dream to where I could not sleep for 5 days. I would go to school looking like the undead. It scared the hell out of me. In Lake Tahoe I woke up to the same thing. I was in a tent with my GF and her cousin. I will never forget that distinctive heavy exhale they make through their nose. When I heard that, reality set in and that whole surreal feeling you get in threatening situations as such set in. My GF and her cousin got a kick out of me being so deathly afraid of the incident the next morning and realized I was terrified of wild animals, so they put cookies and food all around our tent the following night to attract the bears again. They stayed awake waiting for the bears to come, and when they did, the two of them woke me up and told me to look out our little tent window. All I could see was fur covering up the whole window of the tent, and only right then did they tell me about the food they put around the tent. I was so afraid, just laying there shaking uncontrollably, staring into an abyss while they are busting up laughing silently. I have never wanted to die so much in my life as I did then. Who the fuck does that?